Hello, welcome to this video. Thank you so much for tuning in and sharing in this now moment with myself and with one another. If you haven't seen these videos before, welcome. Welcome back if you have. A little energy share, a little light language, and we'll see what wants to come through. And I may run out of video, so apologies if this ends early. Why do we rhyme? Why does poetry feel so sublime? Why does it linguistically curl back, curl through, curl? I'm hearing curl our hair. For as we create linguistical play, as we allow ourselves to unfurl from the curl, I'm seeing this as a representation of literally a coil and like a coiling. DNA, right? Proteins. For as we play, as we put on to display our creative interpretations, our creative experimentations, our creative creations, we bring forth into our vocabulary more realizations about our truth, who we are. We do not get hung up on the words. We do not get hung up on. So I'm seeing this in reference to a telephone. So I see pictures when I talk, when I speak. Sometimes I hear words in English that they don't always come through as I'm speaking the light language or the ancestral language. And I am going in multiple linguistics here, by the way. So just to share. But what I'm seeing is sometimes we run out, we don't have the words in the English language. And so what happens is it causes us to get hung up and stop creating. And what I'm being shown is what I'm talking about isn't just words. I'm seeing mathematics as a language. I'm seeing science as a language. I'm seeing colors as a vibration. I'm seeing all of the forms of communication. And what I'm being shown is we're really hung up right now on linguistics. Like it is causing us to literally this is all a play on words and all multidimensional. We answer the phone, and if somebody doesn't say what we like in the way that we want to hear it, we hang up. And this is not to be taken literal, necessarily. You guys, this is so multidimensional because I said it is literal, but it's not. All right, let me go back. So what's happening is we say, I don't like your tone. I'm not going to listen. I don't like the wordplay that you're using, so I'm hanging up the phone. And while that is okay, and that is a good thing in many circumstances for us to speak our truth and say, this no longer is allowed in my world. For example, if someone's being hateful, if someone is being negative all of the time towards us, if someone is mistreating their fellow human being, that's a perfect opportunity for us to share that those words are not compatible with the expansiveness or implosive factor that we wish to create. An implosion has to do with bliss in the heart, bliss in the blood. So we're here to create, and if we're destroying and destroying and destroying, it isn't lining up with the pattern of our spiral. And I keep hearing the word coil. It's not, the electricity isn't there in order to create. And so that's when it's important for us to say no. However, there is another layer to that many are being invited to recognize when it is their ego that is being triggered by the tone, and also to recognize that just because something looks a certain way, we've always heard the term, if it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, eats like a duck, it's a duck, or something like that. I'm hearing that it's actually duck, duck, goose. Like it isn't always It isn't always, because the words that have been, I'm hearing counterfeited. All right, so this takes me into a whole new linguistic. I should have been writing this down because I can see. So when I hear counterfeited, we know that is for like false appearing as real. But what else does that make it sound like? Fear, right? Doesn't that fear appearing as real? Something like that. So words are being counterfeited and they sound linguistically, I lost the word already, but they sound linguistically appealing. Yet what's happening is they're actually false evidence. That's what it is, evidence appearing real. So when we go into and we learn, part of the reason I've been guided to share a lot more of this communication is because we start to feel what's being said behind the words. And many people are starting to feel this. We can hear somebody speak and we're like, nope, that's not true. But we're also being invited to really listen, to read between the lines and not hang up the phone, not get our lines crossed because of false evidence appearing real. So even though we think we might know what's really going on, I have been shown over and over again this last year that we don't. Many of us don't. Many of us do. But there are many people that think they're aware, and they are only to a certain degree. I'm hearing the term Andrew Bartzis uses, if you've ever watched him, 1 degree of separation. It's like, if you just shift it 1 degree, it completely changes the whole connection. But what he talks about, I'm just merging him in a portmanteau fashion. Portmanteau. Merging of words and linguistics. And our vocabulary has been harnessed in a signature frequency that has bound us to a particular angle, that has bound us to a particular time frame. Yet this time frame has collapsed in on itself, and the charge that was navigating it, the polarization, if you will, has shifted. The poles have shifted within our own bodies. This is so layered. As we disentangle ourselves from the cords, the corded technology, the sound waves that we are constantly in a state of processing, as we allow ourselves to hear the song from within the veins. Again, I did a previous video where I talk about connecting with Mother Nature, connecting with our other brothers and sisters who are assisting in raising the frequency and vibration. It's about us getting back to the fusion in our blood to break through the confusion. And I'm hearing that blood to brain barrier. Like, a lot of people are not in their hearts, meaning they're not neutral. They're not in a state of co-creative abundance and awareness. They're in a state of fear, false evidence appearing real. And when we're in that space of fear, the linguistics that are coming through sound different than when we are in a place of neutrality, abundance, so on and so forth. I'm hearing the pings are different, the radar is different, the sonar is different, because the vehicles that are transmitting the sonar are, I keep hearing a collapse. It's like a collapsed charge, like it's keeping, it's feeding a collapsed timeline, so to speak. As we allow ourselves to be proactive in the term, all right, so I'm hearing, break that down a little bit, proactive. For many of us, we think it means acting before something happens, but I'm hearing that as reference to proactive. I'm hearing it as reference to allowing ourselves to activate, be activated, versus triggered and deactivated, right? Recognizing when we're being triggered. It isn't about It isn't about not being triggered. It is, but that's not necessarily just naturally going to happen. Oftentimes, because we have had so many programs, because of our life experiences, words that are connected to our memory complex that we associate as being negative, we then are triggered, right? And what I'm being shown is many of us recognize that we're going to be triggered, or that we are being triggered, and being proactive about that. So getting back to the heart, creating from a space of love, getting back into Mother Nature, taking action, being responsible, being compassionate, being in that ho'oponopono, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, state of awareness, to where when these triggers happen, we don't collapse and it gets sucked into that. And this is all multi-layered. It isn't necessarily exactly what I just said either. There's other layers to that. So when many people are feeling like they're being proactive by, following certain directions that are not necessarily neutral, balanced, and aligned. So then they keep getting triggered over and over and over again. And it starts with that awareness of what triggers us. And I'm being guided to talk about that a little bit. So I have we can get triggered by a particular person that looks a certain way, because maybe when we were a baby, that person was friends with our family and they weren't very nice, for example. Or it might have been somebody who abused us when we were a child. And we don't necessarily remember that person, but we see that person and we tie that together in our subconscious. It can be the sound of somebody's voice, that it could be, I'm being guided to go back to that 1 degree of separation. It could be somebody that we are karmically bound to, and that is only one truth. We're never bound to anybody karmically. That's a choice, but that's another video. But let's say we made agreements and we have karma tied to this person, and this person in many, many lifetimes has hurt us. And so now we come back into that awareness and we allow that to happen again because we're triggered by them, but we're not aware that we're being triggered. That's just one example. There's so many layers. Have you guys ever seen that movie with Will Smith and Charlize Theron where they're both superheroes? And anyways, it's kind of like that. Like, they basically destroy each other every time they're together, but they're so drawn to each other because they've had so many lifetimes of that connection. So it goes beyond that, though. This is our mapping system, right? We've created this map so that we know, okay, don't be friends with this type of person because we might get hurt. This is lifetime after lifetime after lifetime that is ingrained or imprinted upon us. And so as the masters embodied that we are, we've already been through those things. So we can utilize these triggers and certain words as gifts for us to say, isn't that interesting? I was just triggered by this particular television show or this particular speaker on television. Was it their tone of voice? Was it the words that they were using? Was it the technology behind the words that is being filtered through the television? All of these things. And once we recognize that, it's almost in that moment gives us the ability to say no more. It can literally stop it right then and there. It can be that simple. And what I'm hearing is a lot of the words that have been used have been simply reused and reused and reused, like Pavlov's dogs, right? Where I think it's Pavlov's dogs, where they're given a treat, and then it's like a behavioral thing, right? I keep thinking of The Office and Dwight, where turns off the computer, offers a Tic Tac or Altoid. Turns off the computer, offers a Tic Tac or Altoid. Turns off the computer, offers an Altoid. And then finally the computer turns off and the hand automatically comes out like, where's my Altoid, right? And it's just programming. So we tie things together and we don't even realize that our subconscious is tying that to more ego and more parasympathetic nervous system versus the sympathetic and the soul, light body, whatever we might want to call it. Okay. And as we advance in this ability to see in advance what situations to integrate, what situations to review, what situations to avoid. For we may be in a weakened state of view, for example, and that is the perfect opportunity to, I'm seeing, not keep throwing ourselves into the hot water. Like, we're triggered, we're stressed out, we're anxious. Unplug. Quit doing things that are only going to continue to trigger us, because it can cause malfunctions, it can cause malware, it can cause dis-ease, it can cause physical eruptions, it can cause so much. And so the other is to shift, when we are in that neutral place, create from there. Like, many people are getting triggered and then get sick and frustrated, and then they take a break, and then they just jump right back in and get triggered all over again. And what are we creating is what I'm seeing when we're not in that space. So it's okay to have, this is all a human experience. It's okay to have all of these things. I still get triggered, and I'm not saying that like I shouldn't be because I'm here. Sometimes I have a tendency to think, oh, I've worked through that. Oh, I've moved beyond that. And then lo and behold, an opportunity is gifted to me to see that I haven't quite moved past that. You know, certain things really trigger me, like seeing children harmed or hearing about misdeeds that are possibly hurting others. That really gets me going, so to speak, but not like it used to. And when I'm in a space of neutrality, I can then create and still do what my mission is, and still bring to the table what can assist in raising the frequency and vibration, rather than just trigger, and then all of that energetically goes to that story. And it doesn't help to collapse the story, it actually helps to give more charge to a collapsed story. Because I'm being reminded to share with everybody that even though we haven't heard certain things, they have already come to pass. We just aren't hearing about them in the mainstream media. So that's also an important thing to recognize. But I'm gonna go back into flow. As we allow ourselves to stabilize our frequencies, it allows us to stabilize our course of action, our ability to create from a stable course. Chord is what I'm hearing, harmonic. And it allows us to step out of the discord much more, I'm hearing smoothly, and I'm hearing empathetically, but not like an empath, but like it makes more of an impact is what I'm seeing. If we can find that ability to recognize, all right, moving on. For our technology, our bodies, our skin suits, is fully capable, is fully compatible with the creative frequencies that are boundless, that are infinite, that are bound, so to speak, within our DNA. And as we recognize that we must create from an advanced, so this brings me back to proactive, an advanced awareness as the embodiment of, I'm hearing light body, the masters of ascension is what I'm hearing. We're there, we're in it, we've done this before. Let us start acting, proacting from that space rather than reacting from the old triggers, which again, I'm bringing it back to the beginning, which was the words and linguistics. So I'm being guided to remind everybody to read between the lines, which is reading with this intuition, with the heart, because these are needing to be connected for a lot of people. Also the willpower through the solar plexus, the sacral for creativity, the roots and grounding into the body and into the earth, and remembering that we are fully connected to all the spirit that moves in all things. I like to call it that. We call it the force, as in, right, the Jedi, source, prime creator, whatever we want to label it as, God. And when we start to do that on a regular basis, we can feel before we're even triggered. We just can, I'm hearing, intuit. So that's where the intuition for a lot of people has turned on and they don't realize it. And that can cause, I'm being guided, I've got goosebumps to share, that can double trigger us. So our extrasensory abilities are kicking on, our intuition is kicking on, and we know we're gonna be triggered, yet we're not paying attention to recognize that we know this. And then we still dive in anyways, right? We've all been there, done that, or I have at least. I don't wanna speak for everybody. So recognize that our intuition is kicking in. It's telling us ahead of time if somebody is being honest. It's telling us ahead of time, this is going to be true, or this is going to trigger you, or this is not true, whatever it might be. But I'm also being guided to share that there are those that have not done the work, that they are continuously getting sucked in, that they think that their intuition, I'm hearing false sensory. So I'm hearing artificial, I'm hearing false sensory abilities. So they might have opened up the intuition, but it's being pulled in so many different directions because they're not centered, they're not anchored in their bodies. They might have had a spontaneous Kundalini experience, which can create utter chaos in the nervous system. And it's really important to do the basics, get back to what am I creating? Where am I creating from? What spin am I creating in my life? And what velocity, what speed? And I know those are not necessarily the same, but what am I filling up with? I'm hearing, what am I charged with? What are my coils being charged with? Because this is very important, because if we're not expanding and we're not charging into a new charging station of love and expression and truth, then we are unable to differentiate, decipher is the words that are coming through, and also discern, right? What really is the message in between the lines. And so because our lines are all crossed and haywire, because we're believing somebody else's stream, message, speech is what I'm hearing. So, all right, I think I'm going to end on that note. In love and light, namaste.